All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here for another episode of Comeback Stories. Today's guest, he's back for round two, Zach Clark. Zach's the founder and CEO of Release Recovery, a New York-based addiction and mental health recovery program, and founding member of Release Recovery Foundation. Zach's platform grew when he won ABC's reality show, The Bachelorette, in 2020. He's a South Jersey native and a crazy-ass Philly fan. But most importantly to Darren and I,
Birds.
he's one of our best friends and someone that's doing unbelievable work in the world right now. So welcome back for round two.
What's up, boys? I need this. I mean, I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime, but I need to see you, so it's good to connect.
Connecting in the flesh.
Yeah.
The last time we connected was New York, or were we out here one time in Vegas together?
We did Rufus in the summer, and then I was out here for a game.
Yep.
That crazy Cardinals game. I don't want to bring up bad memories, but
Hey, man, we live and we learn. You know what I'm saying?
amen.
But yeah, good Toca Madera vibes afterwards.
Yep. We were there last
times.
night, Donnie, with a bunch of. I'm in town for a conference, for behavioral healthcare conference, so we had about 20 people over there. Donnie swung through. It was cool.
Swung through and ate a whole lot of food. That is my favorite spot.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure,
good.
especially here.
They take good care of us.
Yeah, so we wanted to have you back. Just really selfishly, I think, for Darren and I to connect with you. But the first interview we did with you was in New York City. It was a live event that we did in your neck of the woods. I led a little yoga. Darren led a little serenaded everybody in Shavasana with a beautiful song. And we did the live podcast interview. And so you can go back and listen to the depths of Zach's story in part one. And part two, we might allow you to give the Cliff Notes version again, and then we're just going to riff and talk about what's going on in life, what we're struggling with, and try to keep it real, raw, and vulnerable on here like we like to do.
Don't you teach me to start with what's going good, and you're going to go right to struggling on me?
No, let's go there. What is going good? So yeah, that's something very important, I think, in the coaching that we do. And Zach started as one of my coaching clients, so did Darren, and now they're two of my best friends. But that is what we talk about, what's going well. And the reason we always talk about what's going well is because we're so used to talking about what's not going well. So when we talk about what's going well, it's like starting your day in gratitude. What you focus on grows stronger. So when you focus on the good, usually more good happens in your life. So we always talk about the good, but then we always go, okay, what are you struggling with? What's not going well? And it's not failure, because in the not going well, there's amazing opportunities for growth when we shine the light of awareness or bring to the light what we're struggling with, right? So really that growth mindset doesn't allow us to ever be the victim or feel like we're failing. We're just going to learn and grow from it. But let's not go there. Let's go. What is going good with you?
New year, new energy. I mean, I've never been someone that's into all the hallmark, like the new year, but for some reason this year did feel like a reset for me. It felt like a reboot. Last year was gnarly. It was not fun. There was moments of 2022 when I was not happy, not centered, not focused, just that brain that was moving in a million miles a minute, in every different direction. And that was, around relationships and work and all that stuff, when it all kind of came crashing down. And so what's going good right now is I was able to clear a lot of energy at the end of the year and really, really reboot and repurpose and refocus, really going back to the drawing board professionally, and understanding that I believe my purpose on this planet is to help people who suffer with mental health, suffer from substance use disorder. I know what the world tells me anytime I, put up a basic ass picture of me at an Eagles game or whatever it is. I'll get a couple, oh, this is fun, or you look good. But when I put that meaningful content out there, that's what the world responds to, And so if I'm really listening and I'm really taking in the energy, I know that that's what I need to be focused on. And so from a business perspective, we're experiencing some pretty exciting growth. We're going to try and help some more people. And the other thing, Donnie, you and I talked about, in 2022, man, I didn't try to meet anybody. I didn't date. I don't talk about that stuff often, but I think we were talking earlier in this year, and I said I went on 2 dates in 2022, which is crazy. And left to my own devices, I'll lean into that for another 5 years.
I want to ask you. So it's for me, I know I'm somebody that just will isolate. that's my nature. Like, is to push everybody at arm's length, and I still battle that to this day. Like, how do you find the balance of protecting yourself and being picky as you should about who you go after dating wise, but also like not isolating yourself. Like, how do you go about finding that middle ground, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about 2020, it's a great question, right? Because when I talked about 2022, some relationships that I had to let go, they weren't romantic. Those were like relationships that were long standing and pretty, special. But things happen in life, and I had to make a really hard decision to kind of move past some of that stuff. And so I think what that did for me is it just gave me the permission to not trust people even more, because I feel like this stuff's happening to me. And at the end of the day, like, one of the things we work on, Donnie, is like, I have the power to make the decision and get out at any time, no matter what it is. But like, I always laugh there because, like, we were at this Rufus concert this summer, and we were having a good old time, and like, it was a crazy dynamic because I'm walking around with Darren, like, every 22-year-old fantasy football bro is coming up and asking him for a picture, and then like I got these girls who like watch the Bachelor coming up and asking me, and I'm looking at them like, what happened to our lives, bro? what planet are we living on? But like that shit has changed the way I see the world, because when someone comes up and asks me for a picture, right, it's like, okay, what's your name? Like, how are you? I want to humanize it.
Yes.
But I learned really quickly that they don't give a shit about anything but being able to take that and have that asset and go send it out to their group chat or their mom or whoever it is. So like, I would turn it back on you too, is like, how have you been able to find that balance, right? Like, because I saw it firsthand. These guys running up to you, yo, I gotta get a picture for my fantasy. I'm like, I felt like saying, like, dude, why don't you say hello? Like, he's a human being, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough for me too, because I kind of have that mindset of like, where I'll see the way people look at me. Like, they'll be like there'll be people like, whoever watches the show, there's this glass right here, and people are like up against the glass, like it's like a lion's in here, like we're at the zoo or something. But I try to get myself out of that mode to where it's like, oh, they want something, and I just like kind of like, well, I'll lower my head when I walk by people, or like speed by, or if somebody will be like, oh, you're such and such, and I'll be like, nah, that's not me. Like, I just co-host a podcast here, like none of that. But yeah, it's tough. It's just catching myself when I want to go that route of like, I don't want to connect with them. I know they're trying to get something from me, but like, instead just like give it a chance, I guess, because some people are genuine. You never can control when they are or what their intentions are. But if somebody does come in and ask like, oh, let me get a picture. Oh, Raiders this, Raiders that. Who's your quarterback going to be? I'll just be like, well, who are you? Like, what are you doing in Vegas? Like, do you live here? And try to start a conversation from there, because that's where I'm most comfortable. I don't do well. I get creepy and my skin starts crawling when it's just like surface level. Like, well, what about the Raiders in 2020? Like, bro, I don't give a fuck about the Raiders in 2023. Yeah, I'm enjoying my off season right now.
Right.
So just try to turn it in a direction and know like I can have power over the direction, over the conversation, instead of just going in thinking people are just trying to use me. Even if they are, like, I can change the perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I try to see the good in every situation and lead with love, right? Like, I was down at so there's this place down in Tennessee called On Site. A lot of people go there for like these 5.5-day intensive kind of psychodrama workshops, and I took some of our leadership team down there at the end of the year, and one of the therapists leading the session kind of led the whole couple days. She said to us, when you walk out into the world and you really think about it, like, if you knew the other person's story, like if you really knew what was going on, you would never be mad. Mm-hmm. And if I live my life that way and I truly choose to not know what's going on with you and whoever else, like, maybe that picture is going to make their day, their month, their week. And if I can be of service in that moment, then let's do it, and move on. But it feeds my trust issues. And like, as someone, I think our common bond and like our shoulder to shoulder shit here is like, we all suffer from, or did suffer from, a substance use disorder. And my disease, as they like to call it, for lack of a better word, wants me alone, to your point, to your question, like alone in a black room with a needle in my arm with no one around. Like, that's what this thing wants me. So I can go back to that without the drink and the drugs very easily if I'm not centered.
Facts.
I'm just thinking back to, God, so much is coming up for me in the middle here of that night at the concert. And then, so there's your guys' perspective, and then there's my perspective where I'm like, whoa, this is so interesting. Like watching these people and watching their energy, and two girls walk by and one whispers to the other one, and then they kind of don't walk away, and they're standing like 3 feet away and they keep looking back. I'm like, wow. And it just gave me so much more empathy for you guys, and what you deal with on a daily basis. And I share this story and having opportunities to be with you around here or wherever, and being like, wow, I don't want that world. I don't. Like, I have compassion for you guys, where most people will put you on a pedestal and be like, I want that life. And I'm like, not me. I like kind of my position that I'm in. But I also think it calls for the responsibility to have empathy for the people that are coming up to you, because they're really in a trance. They see you, they kind of get hijacked into this trance because they're not aware of what's happening. And it's a big moment for them. And whether it's for them or if it's for them to share with everybody else, like you said, this might make their whole day, make their whole life. I mean, we see people standing out here and they wait until the podcast is done. And I guess you never really know. And I like the analogy that you use. You don't know their story. But I think there's balance there. But I always say to Darren, especially, like, you have more tools than I believe 99.9, maybe 100% of the entire NFL. You can handle it. You know,
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't feel for you, but I know you can handle it. And I think that's just the practice.
Yeah. I think it comes back to, knowing that I don't have to let somebody else dictate the energy of a conversation or of any kind of interaction. But most of my life, I was so used to I already make myself small by myself, that it's like, just to like fit, like if somebody's dictating a certain energy, like I'll just like kind of make myself small and not be seen, or not like be, try to even interact with the energy that's there, instead of knowing like, I have the power to, with me and who I am and how I show up, like I can curve this conversation, not like hard and abruptly, but like naturally just curve it into a lane or into a way that I want the conversation to go. And I know in the end that they'll like where that conversation went to, because they'll feel seen and they'll feel heard, and we both will feel that way. But I can still catch myself in moments being quick to just like, oh, not this again. Like, not this, not just the football stuff again. And instead of like, I had to be super intentional of like, I can participate in curving this conversation to where I want it to be. It doesn't have to be what they bring to the conversation. Like, I can always have a response to that kind of energy.
Yeah, it's almost like avoiding even the victim mentality in those interactions.
Yeah, I could definitely be a victim in those. And
Right.
it's like,
I mean, rightfully so at times, but I think that's why having tools to protect your energy and continuing to find your center is like the non-negotiable and the must-have in this world that you live in. Both of you guys.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, like, I've hung out with you guys a bunch now, and like 98% of my conversations with Darren Waller ain't about football. It's not about football.
Right.
It's not about me on television. Like, we're talking about real shit, having fun, like hanging out. Like, and that is so beautiful to me in my friendship with you and my friendship with Donnie, is that like, on the flip side of that, I have found some really beautiful people in this process that I've been able to connect with quickly. And I cherish that shit. And like, so we say, right, there's balance in the universe. And for every one of those kind of crazy interactions, like, who knows if I'd be sitting here with you guys if I didn't, take some of the chances that I took. And the crazy part for me, and like, I don't know, man, maybe I got to look at it in therapy or some shit, but I don't talk about like my experience on television much for whatever reason. And we've talked about this a little bit. And I rarely do it publicly. I don't know why I'm feeling, probably just I'm comfortable with you guys or whatever. But the number one question I get is, was it real? Like, was it real? Was the show real? Was it, cause like, and I always kind of stop and say like, yeah, it was real. Like, I was there.
Right.
That was my life
Right.
at that moment in time. Like, of course it was real. Like, the love was, like, everything was real. And I think that perspective for me comes from having lived this life for 27 years prior to getting sober, where I lied every single day. And so whether I'm on TV, talking to my mother, leading a team meeting at work, like I know that I can't afford to lie or I'll be dead. Like I got to tell the truth. It's part of the deal here with this new life that I'm living. And I think that was one of the biggest blessings, because you talk about the tools, right? Like you talk to Darren about the tools and the tools. So like for me, being in that position where I'm going on TV and I can pretty much make myself whoever the hell I want America to see. But like my best intuition and gut tells me to just be Zach, because on most days I like myself and I'm proud of myself. And so I'm going to roll that out there and just be real and be authentic. And that's what I've got. That's why I think we've connected, you know?
Yeah.
Would you say that the good reason or main reason why you won the show was because you were real? And because we were talking before, and you said how producers would try to get you to say certain things, and you're like, I'm just going to be me.
I don't think, well, one, there's something that doesn't sit right when someone says one, right? Because like for me, like it's all good. I mean, like that's just me. Like, you know, that's my own shit. I think I had a good experience because I had the tools. Like I went on. I was 36 years old. I was 9 years sober. Like I was pretty well adjusted at that point in time to the world, and there was a lot of things there that were very comfortable to me, like talking about my feelings, being honest, being open, telling my story, you know. And like, how much of a dumpster fire would that have been if like it gets to a moment in time on television where I get to tell my story and I lie about it, because there's people out there that watching that know the truth.
You'd have to live with that.
And that's how you burn shit down, just lying for no reason. So yeah, I mean, I think, look, the truth is, in my existence today at 39 years old, is that everything in my life stems from my recovery. Everything. And if I throw that shit away, it's all gone. So whether it's, you know, leading a business, running a marathon, being here with you guys today, all my relationships, it stems from the work I've gotten to do in recovery. You know, my supports, my meetings, my people, my therapy, the stuff that I've done to get well.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my therapist yesterday about, you know, there's a lot of good things in my life, but I still, like, I don't see it a lot from a perspective of living in abundance, right? There's so many things going on, so many things that I'm a part of, and I'm like these are the things that recovery has given me, but sometimes it's still hard to stick to the principles, stick to the tools, and still feel that motivation to do them, because, you know, these things are grabbing for our attention. You know, it's like, I don't think we were meant to or wired to, or I mean, we definitely weren't taught to be able to handle all this success, all these opportunities, while still being diligent in recovery principles. It was either like success was the answer, you know, success was everything. And it's like, now I'm like, you know, success is cool if it's impacting something, if it's impacting other people, but, you know, I don't ever want to find myself leaving what got me here. And sometimes I can feel that pull, and it's like, but I'm grateful that I still have that sense of urgency to bring me back. And I don't know how much you guys still struggle with sticking with that in the midst of like, oh, all these things are popping up, like, but I need to stay right here in what's got me here, in these principles, in these things. Like, what's that like for you guys?
From a personal standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, we've probably done this exercise. Maybe we have defining your own, it's called defining success. And I think so many times we base our success on other people's. And so we're measuring it against theirs, which is like, it's a setup for failure, right? So like when we can create our own definition of success, and I think we need to do that every maybe year, because it can change and it can shift. But like, not what society says we need to have in place in order to be successful, but like your own definition, and getting super clear on that, which is usually rooted in our values. And our values are like the essence of who we are. And we can ultimately make every decision based on those core values. So it's like knowing what success looks like for you today, or for me today, is probably the most important thing. Doesn't mean I'm always successful, but at least I can drive towards the things that matter and not be like pulled or distracted by the things that, you know, our world is paying billions of dollars for us to believe this story of you'll be successful when you have this, or you'll feel like you're enough when you have this. And so we got to define that our own definition. And a lot of that comes even sitting in meditation and quieting the mind and actually listening to some of the bullshit that's telling us otherwise, because it's in that awareness where we can like let those thoughts go. If you're a meditator or you're trying to meditate and you say, I can't meditate, my mind never stops thinking, it's not about that. It's more about noticing what you're thinking about. And those inspiring thoughts that I have in a meditation, I'll hold on to. The other bullshit I can let go. And it's just cultivating that awareness, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so much of the way I feel is based on how like if I'm in the work or not. And it's not a fun place to be, like living in this world without doing the like getting pulled on all those directions and forgetting about the thing that got me here, which is that recovery piece. And you know, I define success in its purest form for me, and you know this because we talk about it, is just being happy. And like I spent a good deal of 2022 not being happy. And at the end of the day, like I was giving my power away to other people, places, and things. And I had to take that shit back. And, you know, it's funny because this morning, so like one of the big things I'm on right now is like dopamine and the brain. And like I'm reading and taking in everything that I can about dopamine. And it's funny because we were in a talk this morning at this conference I'm out at, and this guy, Jim Vandehey, I think he's a media mogul, Axios, Politico, like has had 2 pretty successful sales and whatever. He was talking about how the average human checks their phone 260 times a day. 260 times a day. And I'm guilty of that. And I know on my bad days, what I'm searching for is a like, a comment, a text, an email, a missed call from the world to validate Zach that he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And like, what does that matter if I don't actually believe that? And so like when I'm not in the work, right, to your question, and I'm not living a successful, which for me means happy life, then I'm checking that phone 500 times a day and I'm searching for some shit that's just not there. And if it is there, I'm not actually going to feel it. But when I'm dialed in, I mean, dude, that's when it's good, because like I could throw something up on social media or send an email or make a phone call and I'm in the flow. I'm in the flow of life. I'm going to text you, say, yo, have a great day. I'm going to hit you up. Like it just comes naturally. It comes easy. And I know what that feels like. So that is success for me, like being in that flow, being happy. And fortunately, like at this point in my life at 39 years old, like I feel like I am getting to a place where I know how to get back to that. And sometimes it ain't easy, but I can get there.
How do you get there?
So typically when I'm not there, I'm going to avoid you and any work with you. I'm going to avoid the therapist. I'm going to avoid the other mentors that I have in my life that are kind of keeping me in the work. So digging back in there. But it's little shit. It's like waking up earlier. It's making sure that I'm hitting my knees and praying in the morning. It's making sure I'm taking time to get quiet, you know. And I can do that at any point in the day, right? Like I can walk into the bathroom, meditate for 5 minutes, and no one's going to know. But the biggest thing that usually pulls me out of it when all else fails, man, is service. Think of other people. Think of other people. Call other people. Go donate my time. Go show up for someone else. Go do something I don't want to do. Make one of those no's a yes. And slowly when I start to be of service, I find myself thinking about Zach less and other people more. And that's where I want to be, because that's where life is good.
But your whole life, if I'm thinking about your day to day, most of it is service. So where's the balance between like, I mean, you're doing it all day long in your business, right? So like, how do you find that balance? You know, I always think about your life living in New York City, and I also think about you being, I don't want to say like a nobody, but not somebody that a lot of the world knows. And then you go to Palm Springs, you go on the show, and you come back and you are thrusted back into New York City. and all of a sudden you're a celebrity. Like your belief system and how you see the world and how the world sees you changed overnight.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I still consider myself a nobody because I don't know what a somebody is, right? Like that's what I still I try to view myself, and I try to not take myself too seriously, right? Like I try to trust the world and walk around and just act as if. Um, but it's tough. I mean, prior to any experience on television or anything like that, like I had a successful business. Like I was already helping people. I had a big, beautiful life. Like I was going to my, Philly sporting. Like everything was kind of in place. But and for me, the reality was like this thing came down the pike at like in the middle of COVID. Like no one was doing shit. So I got this phone call. I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, why the hell not? Right. And so, I do feel like I need to look at that probably, Donnie, is like, what does that mean? Like, why can't I slow down and kind of put my oxygen mask on first sometimes? And what does it say about me that I'm kind of like sometimes overgiving, and then I struggle with boundaries around that stuff, and like, am I trying to shove something down by trying to just be of service all the time? So it's like, there's a balance like anything else in life, but I love what I do. I love what I do. I don't feel like it's work. Like I get to work with some of the most amazingly talented people, a bunch of dogs that have like come back from the ashes and like just want to like fly our flag and go help people. And the company I run has grown. I mean, we got like 70 something employees now. We're about to open our first clinic, like treatment center, up in April, on April 1st. I mean, we're up to like 65 beds. So like we're rolling and we're helping people. And on most days, it doesn't feel like work.
I mean, I love the perspective that you have on serving people, and I mean, if you're an addict or you're not, like we're like a self-centered culture, like a self-centered world, and it's like I feel like most of the time that self-centeredness comes from like us trying to fill that void, like you were talking about, like the like or the comment or something out there that's going to make me feel better in here. And it's like we do that enough to where that's all we think about. But like the service work is literally like it makes you forget that void is there almost, like, and it feels it like in an authentic way. Like I'm not here to make myself feel better. I'm here to do a work that inspires and leaves a legacy. And in doing that void is filled because those things I was looking for that void weren't even really going to fill me up in the first place.
Right.
And it's like I can still forget that sometimes because it's like, my career is so demanding, or I got to do all these different things. And it's like when a service opportunity comes up, I may be tired, I may be worn down, I may be wanting to try to go be alone. And it's like I got to remember like what that service work is all about, because here I am not wanting to do the thing that is going to make me feel fulfilled, but I want to go and do the thing that is going to keep me longing, keep me empty, keep me thirsting and starving, and that cycle's never going to end. So it's like for the people out there that are like trying to find a like what service, like it's not really clicking for me. Like the thing, our life is meant to be bigger than us. It's meant to be bigger than what I feel, what I want, what I think, and I just don't feel like the world is really moving in that direction. But that's why we're here. If it's us three, at least moving one step closer to that in that conversation and getting somebody to think differently about that, then that's the service work we're doing right here, right now.
Yeah, I feel like service also doesn't need to look like going into some third world country and
Right.
Saving the world. Your service or your purpose right now might be to be a mom to your children, and that's your work. There's also service in terms, we've talked about this a little bit, where service can often, sometimes it's not actually service, it's more helping, and it's bypassing the actual void, the work that needs to be done. And so we'll get busy and we'll go do other things, but we haven't done our own work. And oftentimes we think we're helping, but we're actually getting in the way because we haven't done our own work. True service is when we can see each other as equals and see my darkness and your darkness, even though my pain might look different than your pain. But that is true service. But I think it does take, like, you have to work on yourself before you're going to go out there and save the world, where oftentimes you can be getting in the way. It's like an enabling parent of a drug addict, like my mom, blinded by love, probably had her own stuff, right? So she took it on and she thought she was helping, but she was just building my bottom, or digging my bottom a little deeper.
Yeah, and I mean, I happen to, and you know, like Darren, you work in a field which is based on numbers, right? Like I work in a field that's really based on numbers. And mine, like our numbers right now in our country when it comes to mental health and substance abuse are fucked. And I use that word because there's just no other word to use.
Right.
Because like I was talking to a buddy last week. He was in Philly, so I grew up right outside of Philly. This is my close friend that I grew up with. And in the course of a week, he lost 2 cousins, one to suicide, college, one to overdose, college-age kids like taking their own lives or dying accidentally because they're going out to a party and snorting a line of cocaine, and really it's laced with fentanyl. You know, so like for me, I also have to understand that I'm not God. Like I have to know that. Like I believe there's a God, but it's not me.
Right.
Because when I start to think that I'm God and I'm gonna like save the world or whatever it is, that's where I find myself in a jackpot. When I really come to conversations and when like I'm working with families and I keep my expectations where they're supposed to be, historically, you know, we get them to a place where life's a little bit better and they have a shot to recover. But like this thing that I'm dealing with is not going to get any better anytime soon if we don't start getting loud about it. Like 100,000 people overdosing over the course of a year, and like I think I read like 80% of those are due to fentanyl. And these are like young kids now vaping in high school hallways, and it's laced with that shit, and they're overdosing literally in high school hallways. So like the game has changed a little bit for me, and like it's humbling because it's impossible to do my work perfectly. It's impossible. Just like it's impossible for you to do your, like you're gonna drop passes and miss blocks and miss assignments. I think the difference between me and you is like if I fuck up, someone might die. And I would have to carry that shit. And so like when I'm between the lines, it's dead serious. You know? And that's why, like at the beginning of this conversation, I've really that's really become clear to me recently, is that like, if I'm going to have this platform, if I'm going to have a voice, if people are going to some degree, listen about what I have to say, then I better get loud and I better get really clear on this is what I want to do, and I want to make this my life's work. Because if I do it half-assed, it's going to come off that way.
How close was it for you? For maybe those that didn't listen to your first episode where you actually told your whole story, but
Yeah.
like, what was the bottom? How close was it for you? Darren and I both had close encounters with overdoses.
Were you guys opiates?
Yeah.
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 Darren got a taste of the fentanyl, I believe. I thank God had my shit like way before it came, or else I'm 100% confident I would not be here today if fentanyl was around when I was running and gunning and using the way that I was.
Yeah. I mean, it was close. I mean, so August 2011 is when I hit my bottom. At that time, what did it look like? Just like if you're listening, and I struggle sometimes. Like I've been pretty forward with my story, but I think it's important to acknowledge before kind of answering your question that like it's really not the what. Like I did the numbers the other day. We have 60% of the people in my programs in New York and like are there because of marijuana. Like that shit is so potent today that
shit different. No.
It's different. Like it's frying people's brains, literally.
Right.
60%. So like people get caught up and like I'll like my buddy will be in rehab or I'll put someone in treatment. They'll call me like, dude, why did you put me in a place where it's a bunch, like I just drink. There's a bunch of people doing heroin here. I'm like, bro, find, don't compare. You know, find some commonality in your story, in your shared experience. But for me, man, yeah, August 2011. I mean, it was It was ugly. I was shooting dope. I was smoking crack. I was drinking around the clock. I was clipping at about 250 pounds a day, or 250 pounds, not a day, 250 pounds. And I would have, for sure, I wouldn't have made it if the streets were the way that they are now. And I essentially ended up bottoming out on the streets of Camden, New Jersey, which is right over the bridge from Philadelphia. And like I had a spiritual experience. I mean, that's just, I don't know how else to say it. And I was struck with a willingness to kind of like take my life in a different direction. And it was this crazy story at a bank, that I've told a lot of times down there.
Is that Rhonda? Is it Rhonda Jackson?
Yeah. You did your homework, bro.
Was somebody that,
This guy.
when you say spiritual experience,
Yeah.
someone listening might not even understand what you're talking about. What was your spiritual experience you're referring to?
So I love this story. And like we were talking about 3 grown-ass men before the show. We were talking about crying. And this is like the story that always gets me because I don't actually know why I was saved that day. But it was a hot summer day. I woke up that morning on a cardboard box, not because I didn't have a place to sleep, but because I passed out there the night before, whatever it was, and I wasn't seeing my family. And there was missing persons reports filed, and I was a mess. People thought I was gone. And so what happened is and I'll keep it quick because I know we don't have a ton of time, but like my whole family was down the Jersey Shore, and I zipped back up from this is prior to the run, so like they were all down there, and I zipped back up, and so like this is a week before I bottomed out, and I was running around Camden. I got arrested, sleeping on the street, and so I wake up on this hot August morning, and I got a ride into Cherry Hill, New Jersey, where my dad's office was, and I stole a check out of his office because I was like, I needed money, I needed a cop, like any lengths, right? And I grabbed the check, I filled it out, I went down to the PNC Bank in Camden, and I walked in there, and I had 2 drug dealers waiting outside the door because I was going to cash this check, and we were going to go do some business. And I hand this woman, Rhonda Jackson, the check, and she looked at me, and like, if I could tell you the look she gave me, it was like she had seen a dead person. But even in that moment, I wasn't able to register like what was actually going on. And I sat there in the bank for like 10 minutes, like waiting, thinking she was going to cash her check. And then she came back out and she's like, hey, I just need a couple more minutes. Meanwhile, she had called my dad. It was a Saturday, mind you. She had called my dad. My dad on a Saturday morning was at his office. He picked up a phone from an unknown number, which he doesn't do. He doesn't work on Saturdays. Like, he shouldn't have been there. He didn't know where else to be. And it was Rhonda. And she said, I think I have your son here. Like, you got to get down here. And he hopped in his car and he flew down to Camden, which is about a 10 to 12 minute drive. And she kept me there long enough for my old man to get to that bank. And he walked in the doors of that bank, and I'll never forget it. Like, this is where I get choked. And he was like, white as a ghost. Like, I'd never seen my dad like that. And he put his arm on my arm and he said, son, we're going home. And in that moment, and I still get it when I tell this story every time, like in that moment, I had a spiritual experience. Something outside of my body came into me, and I just said, okay. And I surrendered and I stopped fighting. And that was, a couple days before I ended up in treatment. And we walked out of that bank, and I went home and hung out with my parents for a couple nights and drank and whatever, and they got me a bed at a treatment center out in Pennsylvania, and I checked in there and finally ended up getting sober. And I love that story for so many reasons, but I love that story so much because I'm still in touch with Rhonda. We go back and forth on social media. I went back and saw her after I got on the show. And there's a post on my Instagram of me and her, and I brought her flowers. And like, she's just a beautiful human who just did the next right thing and literally saved my life. And in turn, how many other lives has she saved? Because I went on to do this work and everything like that. And so they say like your entire life can change in the blink of an eye, and she did that for me. She did that for my family, you know, and I could never repay her for having that awareness to know that something was up. But that for me is a spiritual experience. Like I believe God, the universe, put her there in my path to save me and help my family. And when my dad walked through those doors, like the energy in that bank, it was like radiating.
I mean, yeah, I gotta let that breathe for a second. But I mean, just talk about spiritual experiences. I mean, I feel like the main reason we were given our own spiritual experiences so that we could be somebody that's a cog or a piece in somebody else receiving theirs, whether it's through like our story, whatever we share, whatever we put out there. That's what it's really about. If we're talking about success, it's like, you know, if I can do anything to be a part of somebody else receiving the gift that I have, the truth that I know now, you know, that's what it's about. You know, the big large book that we read out of, it calls a spiritual experience, a personality shift sufficient enough to bring about recovery. So it's basically like whatever was going on before that experience, everything about me changed from then. Like I remember the next day after I OD'd, and I'm like, I woke up that day with a different personality. Like, okay, like my personality before was I'm in control, I'm manipulating everything, I can pull the wool over anybody's eyes that I come across, and that's just is what it is. But that day I woke up with a different personality saying, I'm not in control of this anymore. Like I'm afraid and I acknowledge my fear, so I'll give something to try. And that door was cracked open a little bit and it's like, you know, the less I'm doing, the more room that God has to do in my life. It was the universe for you or or your higher power, whatever it is. Like that door was cracked a little bit by me, just that little bit of willingness, and that allowed God to step through and make something different happen, and you know, make me a leader, make me a person of impact. You know, and it's like, you know, you're in a leadership position now, and it's like I don't think anybody else is more equipped than people like us to really be leaders because, you know, we didn't just pop up on the top of the structure like. And we didn't have to go through anything. Like we've been at the bottom, we've been in the middle, we've been all these different places. So we have the ability to lead and really lead from an authentic stance, authentic perspective. So I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind when it's like I want to be quiet or when I want to isolate and I don't want to, you know, stand in my power. I try to remember that, you know, I got something to say because I have a spiritual experience, something that I was looking for the whole time. I didn't even know I was looking for. But now that I have it, like I want to at least lay a toolkit in front of you to let you go after what that experience could be like for you. I guess.
Bro, you're the best, bro. You're the fucking best. I mean, and I'm having like one of these, like, if you know moments. Like, this isn't going to resonate with everyone out there, but like the shit you just dropped, like if you're in recovery and you're listening to this, like that's going to fire you up. And one of my favorite photos of all time, I don't even think I ever talked to you about this, but is you signing the contract in the Sprouts shirt. Bro, but because I get that. Like that is such a symbolism of someone in recovery because the biggest thing that these men and women struggle with in early recovery when they come into our programs and many programs across the country is they don't want to surrender. They don't want to get the sober job. They don't want to go pour the coffee because they're too big for that. They're too good for that, right? You don't know who I am. And you went and you did that shit, bro. And you humbled yourself and like, we're talking about a lot of serious shit today, but I just got to say, like, we got to celebrate our wins too. And I just love like the symbolism. Like, forget the money. The money's cool, right? Like you earned that, but like the symbolism in that photo with that shirt on, like I know that you were literally stocking shelves, like, cause there's someone in your life saying like, Darren, like just another day, bro. Get another day. Get another day. Right. And I've been there, you know, like, and that's just like, that's why I keep showing up and keep seeking. Cause like when you see someone else have a spiritual experience, when I see that photo, like I know what that really is.
Right.
Like that's God, bro. That's like, we know.
That's God even on the morning of like the laundry stack. I have like a laundry service because I will let the Himalayan mountains of laundry pile up in my bathroom. But like I took the stack out, I guess the night before or put it on the shelf. It's like I walk in the closet that morning and I see that shirt and I hear someone say, "Yup, that one." And it's just like God is just in everything. If you let him, he'll show up there.
Yep.
And if you allow him to, so yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that shirt. Because I had asked you about that. I was like, was that planned? Because I was genius. But then that's just another spiritual
Right.
experience right there. And I think hearing your guys' stories on all of this and what you're sharing, I think the truth is like we're all just vessels, like a channel of love.
Yeah.
Right. And also, to much that's given comes great responsibility. First, we've all been given a second chance at life. Recovery has saved us and given us a freedom beyond our wildest dreams. But then there's also the platform. I believe you were chosen to go on The Bachelor not to find the love of your life, because that didn't really happen, but you were given a platform. And for Rhonda Jackson, angels are everywhere. And I believe that Rhonda Jackson showed up in your life most likely from some very, very persistent prayer, probably from your mom and dad. But then also hearing your dad say, "We're going home," which he wasn't talking about your house. Well, I don't believe he was talking about your house. He was talking about coming home, coming to home to the truth of who you are and finally surrendering.
Wow. That's a bar right there, Donnie. That's real.
It's like, and I don't know what your dad meant, but I know exactly what he meant, and not necessarily in the word, but just that word home, because that's kind of why we're here. Comeback stories. We always talk about, even in meditation and these practices and the work we're doing, it's constantly coming home, coming back. Like our body knows where home is. It's our minds, these crazy ass minds that take us down these roads that make us feel so disconnected and often homeless. But we have practices that bring us back. And your practices might look different than my practices, but this has come up a couple times since the Mark Groves podcast. And when I asked him what self-love was, and he said rituals, habits, and routines, and you talked about that, like that is it. It's coming back to those practices, sticking with those practices, keeping the promises you make to yourself that you can keep coming back home to where the heart is. And how easily we can forget, especially in a world of just all this distraction being thrown at us. So these tools are like so important, and the tools only work if we use them.
Yeah, he was definitely talking about a different type of home.
Yeah.
And that home for me is just like, it's love. And I feel like that's why, more so than others, like I really have compassion and empathy for other human beings, especially ones that make mistakes, because if I wasn't afforded the opportunity to make mistakes and come back from it, then I wouldn't be here. Like I had people in my life who said it's okay, and I and this might be, I think do you guys have Mike Vick on? Did you have him on?
Yeah.
Not released yet, but it will have been released by the time everybody has heard this.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I use that example all the time. Like I don't condone anything he did, but he was given an opportunity and a decision to come back from something that was like would have ruined him for many years or whatever it was. But like to see what he's done with that opportunity, like that's the stuff that fires me up. And whether we're talking about recovery or other things in life, like when you're able to acknowledge the love that the world has given you, and then in turn kind of like share that with others, I believe that's why we're here. The comeback.
No doubt.
It wouldn't have been fun to just live this fucking vanilla life. Like
just about to say, like, people, we talk about being the best versions of ourselves and growing and changing. It's like, if there's no challenge to overcome, there's no drive to get to that point. There's nothing that's going to really pull that out of us or take us through the situations that give us the perspective or the sense of urgency and the desperation to want to be that better version of ourselves. Otherwise, I say all the time, like, me at my core default, like, I'm looking for pleasure, I'm looking for comfort, I'm looking for the easiest road possible to whatever I want. I'm not looking for the tough road. I'm not looking to be challenged. I'm not looking to be broken down, to be built back up with a new foundation. Like, that's just not what I'm looking for. But, that's where, if people are watching the show, like, we're not just like sharing stories to be heard for entertainment. Like, we're trying to help you find that in yourself, find that desperation, find that sense of urgency to get you to where you want to go. And that's just not happening without adversity. I'm sorry. Like, we got to just break that to you right now. Like, if you don't have that thing that's going to break you down to that point to where you truly have to make a decision and your spirit has to be tested in that way, in that fire, like, it's just not going to happen. So it's about coming back. It's about coming back home. It's about coming back from adversity. It's about coming back to your center when you're distracted. Like, it's all about just returning and responding, if I were to put it in any way.
Who knew that this, the title or the name of our podcast would have so many different meanings and so much depth beyond just the actual comeback story, which is why we started this podcast, to remind everybody that they have a comeback story. We knew everybody loved a comeback story, but everybody has one. And so to have people on a platform where most people might put someone like you or Darren or the guests that we've had on a pedestal, like they don't have shit. And so when we have them on to share their shit, that person listening that thinks they're the only one going through it, immediately it bankrupts that story of I'm alone, nobody understands. Because that was the story I was telling myself. I'm sure on that cardboard box, that's the exact story you were telling yourself.
I'm unique.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the special snowflake. You don't know. And then
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep coming back.
I got no choice.
All right, me neither.
I think it's where our freedom lies. I want to circle back real quick to this idea of honesty, because I feel like, thank God, that acronym we've got in the program of how honesty, open-minded, and willing. But it feels to me like in my own life, and then seeing people that maybe can't quite get 100% honest, that the level of our freedom is going to be determined. Like, we can't truly be free, 100% free, if we're not going to be 100% honest. And that honesty starts with getting honest with ourselves. Because the truth is, like, when we go back to habits, routines, and rituals, like, we can skip out on those habits, routines, and rituals, the self-care things that, like, keep our cups full. Nobody's watching, but you're watching. We're watching, right? And so just to make sure that we are staying honest and staying true. But I guess I would just ask you, like, how important has that role of honesty been for you in your walk in recovery?
It's the number one most important thing to me. And if I sat here and told you that I don't lie or I haven't lied, I'd be lying. Right? So when I do choose to lie, no matter how far down the scale I kind of want to go with it, it always has to do with what the other person's going to think about me.
I'm sure nobody can relate to that listening.
And I hate it. And there's been moments now, like, you get better with it because you get trained, right? Like, where I like, someone will ask me something and I want to lie, but I'll catch myself like going like to do that just to kind of. But I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much, and it's all wrapped up in my own shit and what I think that other person or the world is going to say about me or think about me. Because then, if they really knew, then they would know that I'm a bad guy. And like, the story just goes from there, right? It just goes from there.
I feel like as you're sharing this, and as you shared earlier, that honesty is your gift. Like, there's an East Coast vibe to you, like that honesty, straightforwardness. And so I think that's just part of your gift, right? Maybe that honesty was how you, I don't want to say won the show, but like that just like being true, being real, being authentic. And I feel like you probably feel that when you're out of alignment with that so much more, because honesty is like the essence of who you are. So when you're being, a little bit dishonest, you're probably feeling it more than most would. That contrast is great information.
Yeah, I mean, I think this example comes to mind for me, and it's so stupid, but it just goes to tell you. So, whatever, like, I'll say 6 months ago, one of my friends hit me up and she like introduced me to this girl that does like some social media work, and so I started work, and she's awesome. Like, if she was ever to listen to this, like, she knows how I feel about her. She's great. but her whole thing was TikTok, right? Like her whole thing was TikTok, and she's like, we can get this going for you, and it can be good because you'll have more people, and like so. I knew it didn't like feel pure to me. It didn't feel right. So she would come in and like I got one of the guys that works for me here in the studio, like, and so like he would even be there. Like she'd come in like once a week and like do these little videos, and like it was sucking my soul. It was sucking my soul. It was dishonest. Cause like it just wasn't aligned with what I wanted to do and wanted to be. And I'm not to say like I couldn't put something out there meaningful on TikTok that would feel good to people and maybe resonate, maybe help someone, and that would be awesome, right? Like I'm not saying it's not a cool platform, but for me, the way that we were doing it, it just didn't align with who I was, and I got to literally a place where I was like obsessing over it, like why am I doing this? And I finally like got the balls to pick up the phone and just be like, this has nothing to do with you. I want to make that very clear, but like, this is not me. Like it's not me. I don't care about whatever. It's just not, you know? And so there's just been so many examples like that in my life that like, I know when I'm not being true to myself, whether it's with my word or my actions. And that is what throws me out of alignment. And then I go and do shit that might seem harmless, but to me, spiritually, it'll bankrupt me.
Yeah, it just like ignites like the war within once again. Like it just like it's on and popping, and it's like war within to maintain peace on the outside. And it's like, what kind of trade is that? Like that's not even like if you sit there and look at it. If you watch somebody else do it, it's like that's not even fair to yourself. But I mean, I can find myself in that position too of just like, you know, and it's always, like you said, it's always tied to what somebody else thinks about me. Because even for me, like the little things where lying shows up, it's like, if I know I can't be somewhere, sometimes I'll still be like, I think I can, like, you know, 'cause I don't want to let the person down, because it all comes back to me. And like you said, like, and me worrying about what people think about me comes back to the beliefs about myself, because somewhere deep down in there, I still think like I'm a fraud. I still think like I don't deserve these things, you know. And it's just like that whole cycle. And it's like, yeah, I want to be free. Like I don't want to be like, you know, we talked about the phone earlier. Like I don't want to. I'm not on my phone much, but I still will reach back for it for times. And it's like, I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to reach for my phone ever. And it's like, what's it gonna take to get there? And it's like digging all the way back. And it's to those beliefs, man. It's to those beliefs, because I don't tell somebody that I can be somewhere to impress them or to not make them look at me a certain way if I don't think they're gonna see me as the fraud or not enough person that I see myself as in those small moments. It's not dictating my life, but it still shows up. It still, you know, strolls across my brain, and I see it, and it's something that gotta deal with.
Well, I can say just working with both of you as whatever coaching clients is more
Lean
important.
into that, bro. You coached both of us.
Yeah,
You helped us
but the
tremendously.
relationship that I have with you guys is so much more meaningful than that. But I think to acknowledge the both of you, because I feel like when our internal worlds can match our external worlds, like when what's going on in the inside truly matches what's happening on the outside, which are we ever really going to completely get to that point? Probably not. But to see the shifts, which no pun intending, but that's like the name of my coaching program, to see the shift of where you guys are at now, man, it's just so cool. It's so cool to see the evolution. And really using, most importantly, just using this platform for something greater, because like these are the conversations we want to have. You said 98% of the time you're talking to Darren, it's not about football. 98 or 99% of the time, this is what we're talking about on here, because it's so much more meaningful than results, statistics, or performance. Like this is the juice. And honestly, selfishly, this is kind of what sets us free and gives us purpose. And it really just comes back to just being a vessel of love, getting out of the way and just sharing the love. It's the least we can do. It's the least I can do. What do you got to say to close out, Zach?
I mean, these conversations. I mean, like, and it's funny because I feel like we could sit and do this for hours, and this is the stuff I geek out on today. And like, I mean it. Like, my hope, right? Like, if I have a hope, which is like my takeaway, that there's, someone out there that got turned on to this podcast because they're a fan of Darren's or whatever it is. And unbeknownst to him, like, we were going to launch into this conversation about what we just talked about, which is really, in a lot of ways, like the meaning of life, right? Like, in purpose and passion and what fuels us, and recovery and all the stuff that we love so much. And, and that person's struggling, and then they reach out for help. That makes this whole thing worth it, right? So my hope is that someone out there listened today and really feels like, and I don't give a shit if you're struggling with drugs and alcohol, mental health, or something completely different, but that you can reach out and you're worth it and you're loved and it's possible, because I'm an example of that. You're an example of that. You're an example of that. And so the thing I always say is keep going. That's all I can do is keep going. And I'm going to get punched in the face. I'm going to get back up. And, I kind of believe there's kind of like two types of people in this world, like people that have been punched in the face and people that haven't, like, and if you've been punched in the face, like, like, all right, it's on, and so like when that happens in life now today, it kind of feels good because I know like more work needs to be done. I got to sharpen up the tools. I got to get my fists up. I got to play defense, whatever it is. So I love you guys, man. This is the best, connecting with you guys like this.
Love you too, dog.
We love you too, man. Thanks for coming back for round 2.
Thank you.
All right, we're out, everybody.